over the past 4 years working here, I've heard and had the pleasure speaking with all different types of sales leaders with different types of go-to-market strategies, whether it's some folks that live on set appointments, some folks that live by drop-ins and mix mash of all that stuff together. But Mary brings up a great point. Across all the verticals, there seems to be this recurring theme now. I don't know if it's going into budget season right now and people are like looking at expenses and trying to cut things out, whatever it may be. But yeah, they're trying to set up how can I automate the way that my territories are set up, how we pre-plan in them, how essentially we adapt as well. And Map My Customers can do a really good job of that if you have all of the right different sources kind of pooling together. So over the course of what I'll show you here today, you'll see the mobile experience and how the rep uses that in their day in the life when they are setting up their daily, weekly, quarterly kind of pre-planning and how that can all be automated with a tool like ours. But then also we'll touch upon the player coach side of it, like when you're working with a sales manager, instead of going into those meetings, one-on-ones, on a bi-weekly basis, whatever it may be, of, hey, where are things at with your territory? What'd you do last week? How that stuff could be automated, like they can see that before they get into the meeting, and then what they could work on proactively together, just to be on the same page. So with that being said, I'm definitely going to start off with the mobile experience to show you how the sales reps. Okay, Mary's saying drop questions or comments here. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll start off with the mobile experience for the rep side of things. And yeah, to Mary's point, if you have questions throughout the demo, just throw them in there. I'm from New York. Sometimes I speak fast, so feel free to stop me if I'm going too fast and y'all have any questions at all. Justin, Kim, do you want to say anything, or should I dive into Map My Customers here?
Go for it. Yeah. If we think of additional examples as we go through, we'll chime in.
All right, sweet. All right, so let me get this pulled up here. So on the topic of automation, the recurring theme that I hear is I ask why it's important to them. I'm like, all right, well, I'm so happy to hear that that's part of your initiatives. What's bringing this up? And the recurring theme that I'm hearing is the amount of time that goes into daily, weekly, and quarterly pre-planning for the rep, right? Like what that half an hour to an hour of that daily pre-planning does for me, what the weekly can be, whether that's 2 hours, 4 hours, this all kind of varies, and how using a tool that brings all of the data together can just really streamline that. So can you guys see good morning here and this little mini map that I have? All right, sweet. So sure, as you know, this is my iPhone right here, but if you have any type of tablet or Android, this will be the same experience. So when folks think about getting started and automating their pre-planning, they want a way to kind of understand, where am I going and what's going to be built into that. Everybody has a different style when they're using Map My Customers. Some people like to live out of this planner right here, and maybe they don't start off with that in the beginning. Maybe they want to have all their different customers and prospects on the map. But as they use the tool more and more, it's nice to just be able to kind of start your morning, see all of the set appointments and drop-ins that you've kind of planned here for the day. And then to get out there, all you have to do with Map My Customers is click on this little blue icon in the bottom left-hand corner, and you can automatically create routes based on those action items that are already going to be on your calendar. And what you'll see is that when I click on this routes tab on the right-hand side, I've got 11 pre-saved routes. So some of them will be parts of the territory that I'm going back to, but then that will also be built in to the ad hoc ones that I'm setting up. So in general, the best way to go about setting up pre-planning is to use Map My Customers where you have all your action items set up. And then if you're going to be building routes every day, instead of, going into Google Maps and trying to build all that stuff out, use a route optimization tool like Map My Customers that integrates with all of the data that you already have from your CRM, ERP, whatever platform is important to you, and then really hit the ground running. And I have a quick question here. Like I'm going to pull up the map view, and I want to ask this to really Justin and Kim, because the way I answer this question, when they're like, all right, well, how do they then execute on the data that I want to give to them? I've got different colored pins and icons based by, like, for me, it's customer, prospect, and different revenue tiers. What are some of the other ways that you see ERP data, like other larger CRM platforms, get into Map My Customers? to then help them kind of understand like, oh, this is how I want to build in my recurring activities and my cadences and stuff like that. What else am I missing there?
Want to take that one, Kim?
Yeah, sure. I just wasn't sure. I would say group saved filters is a big one, especially from a top-down perspective. Saved filters can be built by an administrator, by a manager, and blasted out. So maybe your reps, set up their pins, their colorization in a certain way that means something, but there could be other targets based on sales volumes. I'd say that's a big one of kind of how you might automate your day and plan out your filters, your groups, is really identifying who are your more important accounts, which tend to be where your cadences would lie. So on your tier A's or on your tier B's, you're going to want to have a cadence set to those if those are the ones you're trying to target more frequently.
Great. Yeah, and I think when I lay out similar answers to that, they ask me, they're like, all right, well, like, what is that doing for the team? And I'm like, well, it's not just the rep or the team. At a high level, if you're building in all of these different customer profiles and these automated kind of touch points with companies and prospects, that's how you start getting towards like consistently having your territory perform, regardless of if your rep is in the field, if you're going through a change of the guard, bringing in a new rep. And setting up this kind of workflow is the best way to hit the ground running with that, right? 20% of the year, myself and other AEs that work at Map My Customers have, it's great to do ride-alongs with current customers and prospects. And when you get into the car, you realize that like the daily scheduling, the materials that they have to have for all of these meetings, the goals that they're laying out, that is so much time in preparation that is going into building the day, the 15 minutes that they sit in the car before they get in there. Everything that you have visually set up here is designed for them just to not have to think about how can I automate, who are the right people to speak with and why during this, this week, just during today, this month, right? So at a high level, then, if you're not going to see 83 people in a day, right? I think Map My Customers could do a good job of helping you see more than a handful, but I don't know anybody who's if you're seeing 80 people in a day, that is that's an insane amount of drop-ins, right? So how do you break down your territory by the filters and priorities that are important to you, to management, in a way that's super quick, right? So along the top of the map here, you can see I've got a mix of saved filters, and the ones that are built in with Map My Customers automatically. And in terms of the automation that a lot of these prospects are after, what they're focusing on is, Jacob, based on certain initiatives that I have, that I get measured on, hey, we're focused right now on upselling all of our current customers on new product lines and promotions. Or the big initiatives that we're hearing from senior leadership is if you have dormant accounts, you need to be seeing them more often. Build that into the map for the sales reps, or have that be a part of what you guys are talking about in your one-on-ones. So that just becomes the first thing that anybody thinks about when they're building this stuff out here. So, I have in contract folks that I haven't spoken to and are starting about date ranges. People that I've never spoken with before, they could end up, no contract being the prospects or those dormant accounts. So at a high level, if you want to continue to build in that automation, using save filters for the rep experience is a great way to just save clicks and time. But if managers are in that player coach role and passing them down to the sales reps, that's how the engine just continues to rev, and you save a lot of time out in the field, right? So let's just say you are in that experience of, right, we're just going to see all the in-contract accounts right now because we're focusing on a new product promotion that we're running. Click into the in-contract accounts. Go ahead here and you can see, all right, here's the 9 accounts that you have to see. And instead of, building out all of your routes kind of manually, our lasso tool is a great way to just automate that process. So I can draw the circle around the accounts that I want to focus on, click on this add route button right here. And then what you'll see, I'll just pull this up right here, is all of those accounts would be built into an optimized route here with Waze, Google Maps, or Apple Maps. So let me pause there for a second. Any questions in terms of the first part of the automation that we're covering, the pre-planning and setting up the territory?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, Jacob. We don't have any questions, but something else interesting I've seen, especially when people have multiple product lines. So they're not just selling like one thing, they have multiple product lines. They'll do a lot of like cross-sell and expand opportunities to segment accounts. So a lot of the pre-sales stuff is who has our, gateway product and who doesn't, and how can we get in there to cross-sell and expand. So that's just another example of something I've seen recently.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and to be fair too, when you have the 9 itinerary, the 9 accounts here for the ones that are in contract for the specific save filter that I've had passed down to me, that's fantastic. But if there are other initiatives, they're always changing. There are other more customers to see. So if you do have that free time as well, to Mary's point, and you're thinking about other things, you can always just click on the show all pins tab right here and then highlight the rest of the accounts that are around you. And maybe that's what you guys have as the best practice. Anybody who has the yellow pin, they've got 3 of the 4 main products that we're focused on, but not all 4, right? Maybe that's what the colors end up being. The dormant accounts, maybe they only have 1. Yellow can be 3, pink or prospect that have 0. Use your mind's eye, right? Any way you guys want to set that up. Map My Customers has multiple of those pin legends. So you can always change colors and shapes based on whatever you're trying to set up here. And that can also kind of help into like speeding up the automation of those territory blitzes, is building in all those different types of profiles with those kind of pin atlases. So, hey, let's focus on those 2 accounts that are just 20 minutes away from where I'm at. Click on the accounts, click save in the top right corner. And there you go. Just adding a couple on the way as well. So automation in the pre-planning, automation to understanding exactly who to adapt to. It's going to be so easy just to do that right from the phone, whether you've been in your territory for a while, but especially for the new reps that are getting used to their territories, having little things like that is just going to help them speed up their ramp and all that stuff a lot quicker and become a familiar face in their territories. The other part besides the pre-planning and the adapting in the territory is I want to spend the least amount of time possible as I need to get information back into my systems for my own notes, but also for leadership and the stuff that I'm measured on, right? So with Map My Customers, I don't think you're going to have anything that's easier for that, right? Because we can take in all the data from all of your systems. I mean, you can see here at the top of the account, our sales leader pins specific fields that are important to the meetings that my rep is going to be having with 212 HVAC at all times. Before you go into there, you want to know the annual revenue, the year-to-date sales, what product lines they're currently using. And another kind of topic that I keep hearing is even if you have those kind of static numbers built in here, orders and all that kind of information are really important for some sales reps to see. So building in like a quick link in to like some Power BI tools or whatever that you're using at a high level as well can be very helpful. So when you go into those meetings, it's not just, hey, where did we leave things? You can kind of get a window into like what only is the last thing that you spoke about, what we're planning for going forward. Do they have everything that they need, right? That can all be kind of built in here to Map My Customers at a very high level. So, go through your activities, your notes, see all the reports and data points that you need. Click relationships, see all the parent-child companies, the different decision makers of the accounts here as well. So all that prep right before you get in there can be right here for them. And the last thing we'd want anybody to have to do is to write this stuff down and maybe do this stuff later when they get home or to the hotel. Click on add activities when you're walking out of the door. Click on your add notes. Spoke to Justin and Kim, who are the new decision makers, period. Demonstration set for next week, period. On site at the end of the month. Get your speech to text going, type that stuff out if you'd like to. And then along the tops, if you're looking just for better reporting too, build in some custom fields or forms to the activities, because this essentially builds out the automated reports that I'll get to a little bit later on the desktop side for the sales leaders. If you want to understand, all right, you had 25 meetings this week. How many of them actually did you discuss, the specific product line A? The best way to run reports and all that with Map My Customers is just have them fill out those couple of drop downs here. And then all the activities that fit those criterias will then populate their reports as well. So these can be required or optional fields, wherever you guys like set that up. And then if I've got to come back here in a couple of weeks to speak to Kim, by the time I put my seatbelt on, I should be done. So you can go ahead and just build these meetings for the future. You know, if I click down in here, you can build recurring activities as well if you're looking to make this more of a frequent touch point. And all that information would sync up with your Outlook and Gmail and the Smart Planner that we started on. So let's go ahead and get started right there. And then that's everything that you really need in terms of what you did before in the car, what you need to do after. And hopefully that's just, you know, 10 to 15 minutes of using Map My Customers, and then you're on to the next meeting right there. You know, and of course, on the activity side, all of your files, pictures, contracts, PDFs, if you guys want to reference that stuff, can live in Map My Customers as well. Anything that anyone wants to cover on what can live inside of the company records and Map My Customers and at a high level, or should we keep on going?
Yeah, I think we can keep on going. No questions yet. This is awesome.
Cool. All right. So if you don't build routes, that's fine. But something that, you know, this prospect I'm currently working with right now is the sales reps are responsible for coming up with their own strategies for prospecting. They have tools, but in the end of the day, like they're responsible for adding 10 new prospects a week, for example. And with a tool like Map My Customers, you can automate a lot of that prospecting experience. Because when you don't have something that's kind of integrated into your day-to-day, then that becomes more manual work in the afternoon, right? So of the 96 accounts that I have over here, great, this is what I'm aware of. But if I scroll over into Queens and, you know, out to the greater parts of Long Island, there's a lot of white space, right? And that's where the low-hanging fruit is, the underserved part of those potential territories are. So with a tool like Map My Customers, maybe while you're sitting at lunch, instead of doing this stuff when you're sitting at home, you know, kind of prepping for dinner, prospecting can be done in the field, right? Or you can do this stuff from the computer. We'll show you later. So with our lead finder tool, you can kind of see from the different demos that I run here throughout the day, you just type in any of the keywords that you want to, you know, I'll do general contractors near me. We'll cross-reference against all the data that you have given us so that we guarantee there are no duplicates for any of your sales reps. And with just a couple of clicks here, I've got 32 new accounts that I can see around me. And qualification is just as important as getting the list. So you can scroll your finger up on the tab right here, and we'll give you the tools to do that qualification before you add them, right? Make sure that they fit your ideal customer profile. You know, check their office hours out, call ahead, view their website. And, you know, let's just say G&M Construction, I go in here, they've got good Google reviews, whatever it may be. These are the type of people that I want to speak with. Fantastic. You know, you can go back in here, add the accounts that you do want to grab, click on add to companies. Let's say I want to automate the way that they get built in, like kind of with their profiles. I have them all right here. Tag them as my leads, so they come in as a certain shape or color. Put them on a route for today or tomorrow. And I don't know, anybody I've never spoken with, let's have them pink as prospects. So our hope is that within just a couple of minutes, all the research, all the, you know, the manual effort that typically takes to, you know, put one account in at a time can be completed. You know, while I'm having lunch in my car, or maybe just at the diner down the block before my 2 o'clock meeting that I have in a couple of hours here as well. Great. So yeah, like in terms of the rep experience and pre-planning and adapting and the automations that are, you know, kind of built into all of that, that would be the mobile side of things at a high level, right? How they get set up, how they kind of move things around in their day, but also uphold the responsibilities of what they're, you know, tasked with, not just seeing customers, but finding new ones as well and building strategies around that. And if there is nothing that anybody has some questions on that side, we can kind of go into more of like the player coach stuff that I'm seeing and, you know, how that kind of one-on-one experience can be automated just to, you know, make sure that reps and managers are on the same page as well.
Yeah, I love that. I see some managers and leaders up on the call today. So that would be awesome, Jacob. Let's do the transition.
Cool. I'm going to pull up the same territory. And what you'll see is, all right, can y'all see the 125 pens that I've got?
Yeah, you're good.
Great. Yeah, so whether it's that Monday morning meeting that you have with your reps, or maybe just general one-on-ones, the visual workflow of the territory here can save you a lot of time in those meetings. Instead of and this is something that I just saw on a ride along the other week, where, the first half of a meeting sometimes can be just the rep reading back to the manager or underwriters that they're working with of what they did and what they completed. What we want Map My Customers to be is all of that data lives here. If you want to click into the notes and activities in any of these accounts, that you can, but the strategy going forward in the territory should be automated. And it's really easy to do that with Map My Customers and, built in with the saved filters that we talked about, but then kind of taking it to the next level, right? So let's stick to that same topic of right now we're focusing on all the accounts that are in contract. And I want to understand other products they don't have, who we need to be spending more time with, and what's the story behind that. So instead of the 125, I'm sitting in the one-on-one with my manager. I click into my accounts that are going to be in contract here. And pardon my slow Wi-Fi, let me about this. What you'll see yeah, so if I pull up all those in contract accounts, and then I'm just down to the top 10. As a player coach, you're trying to think, well, in terms of the narrative, how can I help the sales rep, right? And instead of you having to kind of dig through all of the notes and activities at the account level, you can look at analytics with Map My Customers. With the Lasso tool on desktop, it's so much easier to kind of have an automated process to pull up those data points. So I can pull the circle around those top 10 accounts. And when I pull up the data view here, based on the information that your ERP systems or CRMs, whatever it may be, are pushing into Map My Customers, or sales reps themselves are filling out from their day-to-day activities, you'll get a better story of, all right, well, of the top 10 accounts that I'm working with, only one of them right now currently has the Sundoc account. Half of them have the C-SPAN and a quarter of them have the FINA. So what's working and what's not, and how do we kind of adjust all of that? So at a high level, you're saying, all right, Sundoc is underperforming. Well, now how do we change that? What's the story behind that? Is it competitor intelligence that we're missing on? What's the story there? And with Map My Customers, just switch between something like products used and head right into competitor intelligence. And then based off of information that your reps are filling out, you can see that 9 of the accounts are using Zumo and only one of them has ARIA. So at a high level, maybe the Sundoc account isn't breaking through because that's specifically something that the Zumo product line are doing better. Is it because their trials are quicker? Is it because their price points are lower? And the only way that you're going to get that information is by, kind of speaking to the rep, right? So as a sales manager, maybe I'm doing this in the meeting and then you kind of dig through all the notes and activities in 212 HVAC. Or as a manager, you're saying, all right, well, how do I find that information out? All these accounts are owned by Tony. In my one-on-one with Tony now, he's the guy that I have to speak with about all these specific data points. So as much of the automation is the main focus, obviously, for what the rep is doing in the field, as a manager too, there's no need to spend all these hours kind of going through all the dashboards, maybe in other CRMs that you guys have set up, or like Excel spreadsheets line by line. With a tool like this, if all the data is kind of built in together, it's a super streamlined way to kind of have automation and the player coach experience. And then your one-on-ones can be quicker and more effective, in short. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's great.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know we'd had a question like submitted beforehand. It's like, and you touched on it perfectly. Like what other parts have you seen managers, so like that player coach role specifically, automate in the one-on-one experience? So like when they're actually like, face to face with their rep, what's worthwhile automating and what isn't in that kind of player coach role?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think first off, it's super slick to use data view. It's just so easy to kind of pull this stuff up in real time. But to Mary's point, there are a lot of systems that make it really hard to break down a list of like completed activities and action items based on specific topics and initiatives that are important. But with Map My Customers, something that's really nice in our reporting section, as that you can build in, monthly reports, weekly reports, daily reports, based by specific data points that your team is working on. So to Mary's point, how do I just make sure that I'm only speaking to Jacob, the rep, about all the activities he's completed over the last month that have been on, with the topic of products A? With Map My Customers, just build in all of your recurring activity reports. And then that's the piece of paper that you have in front of you. And then the data view is the part that you kind of, that's how you plan and then build action upon all that stuff. So those exports that are automatically built in, just on that recurring basis that you want to, can make it super easy for you to just have the data that matters the most in those meetings.
Okay, this is
And
yeah, this is super cool. There's another question that we can just like wrap this up, and then Kim and Justin, please feel free to like add any other use cases you see. But one of the things that I love so much about working here and about working with Justin and Kim specifically is this type of automation can seem really overwhelming, especially if you don't have the internal processes already in place or a strategy to implement them. So what I love is this like kind of crawl, walk, run approach that we usually advocate. So as far as like automation from the customer success side, like how do you see customers best build in automation over time, Kim and Justin?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different options. I don't know if there's one set approach, but we can integrate, data pretty regularly. So if you have this type of data in your CRM, like your HubSpot, Salesforce, that makes it very easy because we can pull it in via native integrations. Additionally, if it's living in another system that does not like a CRM, more of an ERP type system, we've integrated with many ERPs using what's called an SFTP process, which is just importing and exporting data between the two systems on a daily basis. That helps get that info up to real time, info to your sales team in virtually real time. So that's, I would say, sort of the gold standard. And we could definitely talk, if you have questions or interested in setting that up, we can talk to your IT team about that and begin a roadmap and begin project implementing that. If it lives in other systems and you're not quite ready to automate that, we can start to bring in certain data as well. Map My Customer supports import functionality to bring in data. And so as long as we could match up, this company is, 212 HVAC is in Map My Customers, is this 212 HVAC in another system, we can bring in other data. So if you have some of that product data or other information, you want to bring that into MMC, we can help do that with you on piece via an import. Even if it's not something that's updated regularly, we could work with you and say, hey, let's update this once a month or once a quarter and bring that information in pieces. Obviously, if it doesn't live in another system, that's something else to tackle as well. But as long as you've got the data somewhere, we can probably figure out a way with you to bring it in both in a short term and a sort of a long term, maybe more automated strategy too. So.
Question. I don't get to hang out with Justin and Kim every day, so I'd be curious. When maybe a team is on the walk phase, right? Or maybe they're even running with Map My Customers. Have you seen in the past that it's easier to make changes in the amount of accounts that a rep is responsible and then able to see, right? Like I did a ride along last week where, a sales rep was she had 79 accounts in her territory that she was supposed to visit. And when we went to a lot of these appointments that she had, we actually realized that the accounts weren't the ideal customer profile. So I want you to imagine, of the seven of really the 9 accounts that we saw, most of them weren't even worth her time, right? And that's because, we started to look at the data view and all that stuff and said, hey, like, if they don't fit into that threshold of the perfect customer, why are we going to come back here? And when they have all the automations with cadences and these kind of, customer profiles built in, have you seen it be easier for customers to say, I don't know, maybe not 79 accounts and some of them are bad fits, but 90 to 100 accounts and they can be better fits?
I don't, Kim, you often, I'm sure that's happened. I don't have a specific example coming to mind offhand, but definitely, obviously, Map My Customers presents a lot of information to help better realign and update territories and making them more productive based off of the data you have.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know if I have an example top of mind for that, but
Cool. Yeah, I was just curious.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we've covered pretty much everything. Jacob, there was one last question that got also submitted beforehand, and I don't know if you can, we only have like a few minutes left here, but if you can just touch on it really quickly, is we have like, we'll talk to prospects or even current customers who maybe, you know, they're hiring or onboarding a lot of reps because they're growing, or their sales team just has turnover every 18 to 24 months. So, you know, what's a way that can be automated for a territory so it doesn't stop producing revenue from the moment the rep leaves? In the meantime, the new rep is being onboarded. So maybe that's like, you know, if you're really good at it, maybe that's only 30 days. For most customers, it's probably closer to like 90 days. So is there anything that you can ensure here to, maybe it's just the setup of the account, to make sure that a territory doesn't stop producing revenue?
Yeah. I think it all really comes with, if your tools aren't easy to use, you're not going to have adoption, right? And in the end of the day, if you have a sales rep that's been performing in a territory well for 10 years, and for whatever reason they move on to a different opportunity or, you know, a bigger role somewhere else, if the tool has been easy to use, like for example, like if they lean into Map My Customers because it makes them more efficient every day, that means that all of their notes and their activities live in the tool. So when the new rep pulls into those accounts, all of that data, all of the important relationships is going to be there. If the sales rep before in that territory has everything on their like sticky note dashboard of death, or like the Rolodex that sits in the back of the car, when they're gone, like, so is a lot of that important data. Um, and when you go into, you know, whether it's an auto body shop or a machine tool, like place, like when you go in there and say, hey, where do we leave things? That's so different than saying, like, if I know that Justin's son is a huge Eagles fan and I bring that up like the first time that I meet him, that's the difference of getting a half hour of this guy's time versus maybe 60 seconds and then him kind of dismissing me. So it all kind of snowballs, you know what I mean? Like, and the key is by having that data be valuable for the reps to use for today, and then for the future, they can be really teed up with all that, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So make it easy to log data and then like actually have a system for the data to be logged. All right, this
Yeah.
was awesome. Yeah, thanks, Jacob. Perfect episode of Workshop Wednesday. Thank you everyone for attending. We're going to continue on this kind of like topics based. I think that we got a few questions ahead of time, which I love. And then please continue interacting with us in the chat. And we'll look forward to seeing y'all next week. Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Justin.
thanks.
Thanks.